Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Starring Clark Gregg, Ming-Na Wen, Chloe Bennett, Elizabeth Henstridge, Henry Simmons, Natalia Cordova Buckley, Jeff Ward.
Alive, you guys!
Woohoo!
Hey.
Oh,
Hello.
for
Like
those that
there's an
might
RV behind Eli that's just timed perfectly right as we went live.
what
we did that,
production value?
Okay.
Nice.
The best.
I hooked up with Jocko
I'm
and
just-
he's here and we had that work.
Yeah. So on our live today, we have got Eli Gonda, the director of this episode, and James and SHARLA Oliver. Yay! I feel like there's clapping around the world.
Thanks for having us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I mean, I get excited every week because I'm a huge Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, but this week I'm particularly excited to have you guys on because I feel like you all represent what this show can do and what it has done for me and everybody that's lucky enough to be working in it, and that is that it fosters new talent or people wanting to try new sides of their careers. And I'm so excited for you guys to share as we watch along. I have it playing up here so I can kind of say what's happening and maybe we can do some behind the scenes stuff. But I would also really love it if you guys could share maybe how you came to be doing what you're doing, because I feel like it's something that people could, the way you guys have done it, I wonder if people might be able to do it too,
Definitely.
I'm here because I married well.
Yeah.
You did. No argument there.
Yeah, I started on the show season 1 as a PA. So
which is just so cool. So what does that involve? So it's a writer's PA, right?
Writer's PA, yep. So you get people lunch, make sure everybody's got the snacks they need, make sure that the office is in working order, kind of order supplies, and basically any little job that people need doing in the office, you're the one to kind of take point on that. And then in exchange for that, you get to listen in on people creating story, and you get to learn from all these people. And so that's kind of the trade-off. You do all the little tasks that nobody exactly is excited to do, but they need to be done. And then you get to learn. And this job is such a an apprenticeship based program. You just need to find people that are willing to teach and are kind and are generous, which is exactly what everybody on S.H.I.E.L.D. is. And so you just kind of tell people what you want to do and say, yeah, I am a writer. I'm trying to work my way up. I'm here to learn. I'm here to do anything that I can. And then if they're good people, which our S.H.I.E.L.D. family are great people, they're like, okay, why don't you try this? And why don't you take a stab at this scene? Or what do you think about this story? And then you just get better and better at that.
It's so brilliant because it's the stuff you don't necessarily dream of, doing the coffee run or ordering lunch for everybody, but you kind of earn your stripes in that way. And it also shows a lot about you as a person. Being in the writer's room, you have to be a team player and you have to be willing to be humble. I'm assuming it shows a lot about your character, but for you at the time, it might not feel like you're necessarily doing exactly what you want to do.
Indeed.
But like you say, it's the trade-off. Hey, so we're starting. People press play if you are watching not along on the East Coast stream. I almost got that right. Each week I'd get it off, but this feels good. We're still on the preview. And then James, how did you apart from marrying well?
Well, so I was an assistant on a different show while SHARLA was the writer's PA on S.H.I.E.L.D. I was a showrunner's assistant. And that's how SHARLA and I got our first freelance episode for that show, which was Under the Dome, which got canceled right afterwards. So there was no way to staff us. But I knew all the S.H.I.E.L.D. people just from parties and stuff going back to the Spartacus days.
Yeah, I'd been with some of these people since Spartacus, Jed and Marissa and Jeff and Brent and Mark Leitner, and so it was a group that had been together for a while. If you hear little noises from down here, this is our baby.
Oh, she does it all.
She's hiding just off screen. See that?
Oh,
If one of us has to disappear for a moment, that's what happened.
Yeah.
no, I wish I could take over.
Yeah.
But yeah, so after Charlotte and George got to do their freelance episode season 3, toward the end of that season, Jed, Mo, and Jeff asked for a writing sample from us, and they knew that we wrote as a team. And then they asked us to come in for a meeting the day after the rap party.
Yeah.
And
oh my gosh.
I was at the rap party, not knowing if it was like a good meeting tomorrow or a listen, we want to tell you in person that we're sorry meeting. So I was sitting there super nervous, trying to be on my best behavior. But then the next day we went in, and it was the good meeting. And so we got to write from season 4 onward, and it was a dream job.
Yeah.
So awesome. And when they said you have a writing sample, did you have a few ready to go? You were prepared just in case?
Right. Yeah. For writing, you have to do it for free for a long time, with the idea being that if you're fortunate enough to get into a place where there's a writer's room you're in or something like that, when people ask you, hey, do you have a sample? You want to say, yes, here it is right away. You don't want to say, yes, let me get back to you in 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's such great advice, because it's the same thing in acting. We spend a lot of our time waiting, it feels like, but if you can be preparing whilst you're waiting and then be ready to step up, that's such brilliant advice. And then Eli, how did you come to be a part of this crazy family?
I just stalked you guys, and I just kept showing up. No, for me, it goes back to like the pilot, when I saw it. And at the time I was living in New York and working in theater, and I was associate directing and resident directing on Broadway. And my wife was pregnant. We were moving out to LA, and I was working with Jane Espenson, who worked on Buffy and kind of knows the Shield gang. And I was doing a show of hers called Husbands. It was the first TV thing I ever did. And I was lucky enough to be asked to do that. And it was a great show, and I loved doing it. And said to Jane, asked Jane for advice, because I wanted to do more television. And she was like, okay, you should apply to the ABC Disney program and directing program and take it from there. And I did, and somehow they made a mistake and I got in. It was
how do you go about applying
wonderful.
for that? What do you do to apply? Do you
Yeah, you have to submit 1 or 2 different pieces of work, either a short that's been in a number of festivals or an episode of episodic television. And so I submitted a short and Husbands for it. And it's about a year-long application process, a 9-month application process. It's intense. But I did, and lucky somehow I managed to get in. And they were like, and when you get in, they're like, okay, so what are your dream shows? And I was like, okay, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And they're like, nice. Okay, so what's the other one you want to do? And I was like, well, no, that's the one I really want to do. And they're like, well, good luck, and see you later. A lot of pestering and a lot of kindness from strangers. Well, no longer strangers, but at the time strangers, led to, and also Marissa Tancheron, especially Marissa, the best, led to me getting to shadowed Billy Gerhardt on season 2, who's amazing. And then Megan and Wendy from Marvel took me over and had me shadow on Agent Carter for a while, which is where I met Enver, and which was great.
Cool.
Yeah, so it was kind of a reunion for me, getting to see him, having no idea that I'd get to see him on S.H.I.E.L.D., and then coming back and shadowing, and then got to shadow for Gary Brown on S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes, which is where we met, I feel like, the first time.
Yeah. And Gary's just amazing. So I got to learn from and watch some of the best directors of this show do what they do best, which was like its own little S.H.I.E.L.D. grad school, and it was phenomenal. And Gary, who is just so generous with his knowledge and his experiences, and everyone is, and then also, and the crew and the cast. It's such a beautiful family. And I kind of got to be a fly on the wall for a lot of episodes. And then finally they relented and said, okay, we'll let you do one.
But all that shadowing and stuff, all the watching and the coming to set, that's all, you do that for nothing, right? Like you don't get paid to,
No,
so
well,
just...
with the ABC Disney program, one time you do get paid. You get a
Right.
stipend. But actually, and that's where James and Sharla and I first met, was on Gary's episode a couple of years ago, which was awesome. Yeah, it was your episode. So I got like a double dose of awesomeness because I got them and Gary.
You guys' name on the director list kind of as the season went along, because you never know exactly which episode you're gonna do, but the directors are set very far in advance. So we were like, I wonder if we get to do Eli's episode. Think we could do Eli's episode? And then it just kind of kept coming up, and we're like, it might work out that we get to do Eli's episode. So we were super excited to work with you again.
And I flipped, like I full on, I mean, there was no, like, I kind of just decided from the beginning of this process, I wasn't going to pretend to play it cool or anything. I was like, okay, I'm going to just be on it. Like, I love the show and the people and, you know, you, and then when James and Sharla, when I saw in the script, like it was James and Sharla, I was like, wait, it just doesn't get any better. And so it was wonderful.
It's so amazing that you know, that's a long road to join the shadowing program, a year for the application process, get into it, and from the start say it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what because sometimes it can feel like you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket just in case they pass over you for something else, and just to be so kind of tunnel vision about it. I think that's a huge part of succeeding in this industry, is to kind of have a goal and just keep aiming for it. Your attitude on set was just so wonderful. You know, we've been doing this for like, we're in our 7th season. You can come to work some days and be like, oh, sure, there's a spaceship, there's a plane, you know. And for Eli, like with you coming in, it was just such a brilliant energy that felt so fresh, and you were clearly such a fan of the show, and you knew all our characters' backstories. You remembered stuff that I had completely forgotten about. You bring
no, then, I mean,
so just go on.
No.
I was gonna so I got questions on Instagram, but selfishly I watched the episode, and obviously it's playing now, but this episode, well, I guess it's still a question to all of you. It's almost like it's two separate separate movies happening. You've got Afterlife and Yo-Yo and May, and then you kind of have the Zephyr and a million actors in every single scene. Eli, like, how did you approach each kind of side tonally differently? Like, did you think about shooting it separate, like in a different way, or how did you get the feel of each place?
No, we definitely, I mean, this was something James and Sharla and I talked about like really early on. And also Kyle Jewell, who is the DP and is just one of the most brilliant, and the energy of his imagination is just infectious. Like it truly is.
That's
and
such
so,
a great way to put it. Yeah.
Like it's really wonderful. So when you get that group together, you know, there's limitless possibilities. And we kind of talked about how there would be a frenetic energy, you know, trying to create a frenetic energy in the Zephyr, you know, as well, you know, and kind of like in terms of the handheld, and then kind of having a very different feel kind of in Afterlife, and kind of separating and creating a delineation between the two in terms of the those aesthetics. Also, because it just all comes from the page. I mean, it's what James and Sharla wrote. Not that and Afterlife is in any way calm, but it is a very unique world, and things were literally out of time on the Zephyr. And so, and no one knows where it's going. And so, it all comes from the page, though, like truly.
Yeah, the fun of the room was breaking it with the sort of the puzzle of it, where the Zephyr side was basically like a real time movie, and then we had longer spurts of time on the Afterlife side, and figuring out how it would all line up. And literally how we had the time breaks down was that Sharla made a spreadsheet that she programmed so she could put like
I was really like determined to have the math be like sort of close. I was like, okay, if it's each jump is getting shorter, so we need to like figure out what time,
Like-
how much time they would have in this jump,
is-
and then
Like she
Yeah.
could
Which is the
adjust
greatest
the rate
gift.
to K if she wanted to, if we wanted to have it last longer or shorter, put different start times in. Like we were sitting there in a little windowless office in the writer's room, and I'm like, wow, you're really doing the math. This is cool.
And
And
it's the
that's-
greatest gift for a director, because when the cast asks you on set, like when they ask you questions, which like all great actors do, they're like, okay, so where does this fit when? You actually have a writer next to you who spent the time to figure it all out. And it's just so wonderful, because it's like, it actually does make sense.
Yeah, the
which is
Olivers
such
are
a
always
gift.
the best with like your diagrams, James, and then Charlotte's timeline. Because at this point in the season, all our brains as actors were absolute mush of thinking like where are we? How does this all work? And a lot of the time you can kind of coast by with not knowing exactly. But this episode in particular, with all the cutbacks and knowing where we were and what's happened, and that's so great that you did all of that backstory too. And then how did it come up? Who came up with the idea of, to signify that we were jumping, and you kind of cut lines in half, or there's an action of like throwing a,
But that was something that we wanted to do just from the very beginning in the room, like from the pitch of it, just to help sell the gag of what we were doing. Because people sometimes watch TV, kind of, oh, what's going on? And so just like throwing a walkie-talkie and then catching the other side, like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that no time passed for them. Okay, that's good.
yeah. It was such a clever device of like this episode moves so quickly, and like you were saying, Eli, about being in the Zephyr and making it handheld and very fast. We've had so many scenes in the Zephyr that it's hard to make it feel exciting and new, and you did it with these scenes. We're just on a commercial break right now on the show, so I wanted to ask you, I'm find out the name of the person that said it, but since this episode we see so much more of Yo-Yo and May. Quite a few people are asking how it was to direct Natalia and Ming.
Was that to me? Sorry, you broke up for a second. Was that to me?
Oh, sorry.
I
Yes,
just
to
heard
you.
Natalia.
How it was
Yes,
to direct.
okay, great.
Yeah, how it was to direct.
There aren't enough adjectives to describe how wonderful it was. These are two of the most giving, gracious, patient, talented actors I've ever worked with. And I've been really lucky to have worked with some incredible actors. And they are just two of the finest, and are just so humble. And Natalia, both of them really, were going in places where their characters, like James and Sharla, gave them a lot of meat, to chew on in this, in terms of places where their characters were going, and that they hadn't explored before, or had started to explore and got to further explore. And they were just so game. And it's so fun as a director when you get actors, especially of this caliber, that have been working on a show for 7 years, and that are at such a high level, and operating on all cylinders, and they're running, and to sit there and say like, no, I want to deconstruct this. I want to work on it. I want to, find something new. And it was heaven. It was heaven. And I couldn't have loved it anymore.
And they got to be funny. There's so many funny, like we get to a bit more of the comedy. We're still at the quite scary bit in Afterlife at the moment, but
okay.
James, how was it to be able to put some lovely comedy lines for, particularly May just has some zingers in this episode.
It was because Ming is so funny and
So funny.
and so she doesn't get to do that on the show as often. So that was a lot of fun. But a lot of their dynamic was actually kind of inspired by my mother and sister. The notion of like an emotional feedback loop. My mother,
I love that.
One's excited, the other one gets excited because the other's excited, and it escalates, and it's this whole crazy thing. Like when I told them I was going to propose to Charlotte, I started screaming at the same time. It was nuts.
Oh.
So that was sort of a thing that we had in the back of our minds. Like, oh, okay, so if May is empathetic and she's picking up on this, and like if she's annoyed, they'll make her. So the whole emotional feedback loop is actually like kind of grounded in something, despite us having this crazy show.
but that's what's so brilliant about, I mean, clearly I'm biased, but it's so brilliant about the show is that they are real things. They're real emotions. The director is able to direct these characters that have real stuff going on. And like Yo-Yo in this episode is trying to sort out so many like complicated feelings that have been brewing inside her for her whole life, that you as a director then get to tackle that with an actor through this crazy, I don't want to say too much about how it goes through because we're just at a point where Yo some acupuncture.
Oh god.
In fact, how did you do that? Because those are sticking out of Natalia's face.
They actually stuck needles in her and then just Melissa pulled them out.
Yeah.
It was funny when Jocko called, our AD Jocko called Natalia to ask if she'd be okay with doing acupuncture. She was literally at acupuncture when she got the call. And she was like, "Are you watching me?"
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So did you get an acupuncturist to come and stick them in?
Yeah.
Wow, so she got a little mini facial.
Oh yeah, she had a session. It was very relaxing.
Yeah. How was it, James, like coming up with these new characters? Because you're in Afterlife, right? So you have, sorry to spoil too much. We'll try not to spoil too much, just in case people are watching this, not watching the episode. But how was it? Was it fun to come up with characters that maybe were associated with this world that we haven't met before?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's how we sort of approached it in the room was, okay, we have a need for emotionally for the characters to encounter this kind of person. And that's where it all grew from there. And then get to come up with fun powers and stuff for people and figure out the puzzle of who's going to be where and how it's all going to work. And, you know, you go through different iterations of what, you know, life at Afterlife looks like and what the, you know, what's going to happen. I don't want to spoil things. I'm speaking very vaguely, but yeah, it's all like introducing Cora as this person that, you know, May is going to sort of pick up on. And, you know, we'd also think about like, what was the story that happened in the timeline where our people never showed up there?
Yeah.
And then also break that story and then break the story of what happens with how it's different with May and Yo-Yo there.
Yeah. Do you have just so many diagrams up in the writer's room of like, this is where we are and this is, if we interrupt this timeline, that means that person won't have met them? And
oh yeah, when we were going back
through,
like we rewatched all the season 2 Afterlife stuff, so we knew, okay, there's this thing we established when Gordon just got his powers that was like early 1983. So if we're in later 1983, Gordon's got his powers a little more, you know, like down pat at that point. And so that was how Charlotte took her spreadsheet and like plugged things in. So we knew, okay, it has to be like mid to late 1983 when they arrived there, so we can have this happen. And you know, going over all the established canon and making sure that everything fit, which was fun for me because I was just a fan of the show the first 3 seasons, watching it. You know, I would tell Charlotte not to spoil things for me when she was watching.
Yeah, that's what Zach's like. I can't tell him anything. Can't run lines with him. Can't do anything.
Yeah.
Eli, a question for you from Angelina Romano, I want to say. Says, how do you decide what types of camera angles to use? I live for great angles. And I feel like that's something that we're saying about, you know, we've seen these spaces before, even the Afterlife spaces we've been to before. Yeah. How do you start in terms of camera angle?
Well, the fun part with the Afterlife was we got to go to places that we hadn't been in Afterlife before.
Right.
So that was exciting. And with angles, I think it just all comes from the script for me. And like what the heart and what the emotional intent is of the script and what angles will help best, like what you're emotionally trying to convey in that moment. And then what angles will aid you in conveying that. Because like at first and foremost, you want to capture the actors and what they're emoting. And then however you can kind of accentuate that and kind of have that to emotionally and in terms of momentum and everything kind of aid it, the better. And then like have fun. And then if you're really smart, just have a DP that's a lot smarter than you.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. That's what I got with Kyle. So and I've had so it was really great. So that's kind of how you go about it.
So in a way, then maybe the camera's like that is the emotion that you're, like you say, you like it's the emotion that you're trying to convey to the audience. Like if you want the audience to lean in,
Absolutely.
maybe you go closer.
Yeah, complete. It's one of the more prevalent, like prominent storytelling devices that we get, and it can either and it helps guide the audience emotionally and visually to where we want them to be and where you want them to go, and kind of that's how. I mean, there are cooler, or there's sometimes cool angles that we don't use, or different ways that we could have shot something, but if it doesn't aid the story, if it doesn't aid the emotions of the moment, then it's worthless.
Right.
And especially in TV, it's going to end up getting cut anyhow, and if it doesn't fit fit the tone.
I think
that's
such a sign of a good director as well, because we all love cool shots, and we all love something that just feels fun and kind of daring, but on a show like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you just don't have that much time. And so that's what's so brilliant too about writers being on set, obviously, all the time, is, I guess, Sharla, if you feel like a angle isn't quite gonna get the emotional impact of the scene, can you kind of help guide a bit?
Yeah, us writers, like, there's so much that our director, Eli especially, like, know that we don't know. We're like, we come from a story point, and we're like, this is the story, and these are the emotions that we're trying to convey. How exactly should we shoot it? I'm not sure. I know that we're in good hands, but like, so you are just so happy when your director is approaching it from a story sense, and you're like, okay, good. The best thing is that when you can do it from a story sense, and it's also an awesome shot.
Yeah.
You're like, this conveys exactly the emotion, and it's super cool. But like, that's the best of both worlds. But yeah, as writers, we can be there to say, like, actually, I think this scene is like really about May's emotion in this moment. So let's make sure that we are like really close with her when she's like thinking about this one thing. And I think we've done so much talking with our director before we're actually on set that we're usually on the same page with those moments. But it's always good to like be there and kind of go over that one more time and be like, yeah, this is what we're really shooting for in this moment.
Yeah. And with you, Eli, saying that everything comes from the script, I feel like because as an actor, that's how I feel too. I get everything from the script. It's like it's our starting point, it's where we dive off from. And when you have everybody on that same actual literal page, it just creates this magic of, well, it's kind of like we're all, rather than egos trying to be the best, it's more like, well, what's this script telling us to do? How do we get to the truth of this? And then everybody's opinion is valid, because we're kind of all going for the same thing of like, how do we get these words on a screen that does it justice?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, those are some of the funnest moments on set, when like
and as a director too, that
with an actor and then the director, and you're all kind of like just trying to dig into like what this moment means, and that everybody is just wanting to get the most out of it, and maybe people like are on slightly different pages, but they're trying to like figure it out, and it just is so much fun because you find something sometimes that you don't like, oh, I didn't exactly think about that line being read that way, but I totally understand why, and I think we should do that. And so that's the most fun things about being there on set.
Did it feel like an extra pressure for this episode, Sharla, with it being the last one that you guys were going to do?
Yeah, a little bit. It's definitely bittersweet. You're like, oh, this is the last time we're going to do this. Oh, this is the last time we're shooting with this cast member in this set. So every little was like, oh, this is
so emotional. Yeah. We're in, I think that what might be one of my favorite scenes of the whole show ever is it's May and Yo-Yo, and they're sitting around a ton of candles, just like holding on to each other. It's just such genius to put those two characters in this situation, and Eli, for you to shoot it, just, it's so romantic and they're very uncomfortable. Like, how did I guess for all of you, like, how did you approach doing this?
Well, yeah, I think we started from a place of just realizing that this would be so awkward, especially for these characters, and we wanted to be really honest, like, because Jiaying comes from a very like, let's try this, it's kind of just a different approach to everything, and these two characters they obviously like need their problem solved. They want to try and help get Yo-Yo her powers back, so they're willing to try anything, but this is just absolutely not working.
They're both so serious that's what makes it fun to put them in this absurd situation.
Yeah, it's so brilliant. And then Eli shooting that, it feels, well, I guess, what was your approach? Because it plays just, I mean, I just feel like you pitched it perfectly.
We I mean, like Greg Melton and John, you know, who did the set and the art direction, kind of gave beautiful tools to work with, and we knew that we wanted to kind of, exactly what Charlotte was saying, juxtapose kind of this approach that Jiaying was taking, and so kind of give the fluidity, you know, and Kyle was in it like to give the fluidity with the camera, and also this very symmetrical kind of at times a lot of form with the angles and with the camera, to kind of juxtapose the uncomfortable nature of the moment for these two ladies, and so it was just fun, and also just get out of their way. Like, these are two phenomenal actors, and it's like, get the hell out of their way and let them do what they do best, and I feel like they did.
Yeah, I remember that there were a lot of discussion and even text messages about how many candles.
Yes. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Perfect amount.
Everything's discussed
and then
a lot.
We're like, no, more candles. No, less candles. I think everybody had a different opinion of how many candles should be on that set. What's the level of candle that is like funny?
Yes.
Yeah.
Flame. Yeah, because
Really?
we didn't want it to be a gag.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Perfect.
It was like, I think there are too many candles. No, they're not. We're just gonna shoot them that way. Yeah. Like, it was. Because nobody wanted, I mean, it's all of your babies. Like, it's everybody's baby, and everyone's protecting the baby, and nobody wants it to be camp or slapstick or anything. It's you know, this is a grounded show about real people that have extraordinary abilities, but they are real people, and so no one wanted it to be camp, and so everyone was out to protect that, and it was cool, and I think it worked out well.
It did. And candles can be an absolute nightmare continuity wise, because you've got to, you know, once they start to burn down, and then it's got.
Did you have candles? Did you get candles?
Me? No candles.
No? Oh.
They gave them all to you. We'd run out of a candle, candle budget was blown on your episode.
Oh.
It's out in the world, right? That you directed the next one?
It is, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, this was so fun, because so Eli and I did you have to kind of go through an orientation, and we did it together, like in this whole big group, and so I've always felt such an affinity with you, Eli, and looked up to you for everything that you've done, but it's like it was such a lovely thing to kind of be shadowing at similar times, and then go to our orientation things together. It felt like we were kind of in college together.
Yeah. It did. It really did. It was so special. And you had my back on set in such
my gosh, of course,
incredible way. Like, I remember the first day you texted me and you were like, you got this. Like, you're okay. Like, you're good. You got this. And because it is scary. Like, going in, no matter how well you know the people, no matter, because you guys are a well-oiled machine, and you just, as a director, you just don't want to mess it up.
Yeah.
And you just, you knew exactly, as you do as an actor, like when to kind of like just drop these little nuggets and kind of take these moments. You did for me, like, just as a human being, like sending that text and being like, you're all good. And it was just, it was amazing. So thank you.
I mean, it is absolutely I mean, anything new that you do is terrifying, right? I'm sure, Charlotte, the first day that you went from being a PA and walking into the room as a writer, it's and sometimes it's harder to do it maybe around people that knew you as a different thing. You know, you got to walk in, like Eli, we had you around and we knew that you were shadowing, and so it's, you know, anything new is scary, but you gotta do it.
Yeah.
We were remembering, Elizabeth, that we had to write you kind of late in this episode. We were sad. We're like, oh, we don't get to do a big Elizabeth story in ours because you had to be prepping. You were in like meetings all day, and then you'd come to set for like a little bit and shoot a scene or two. But yeah, you were like running around like crazy during this episode.
I was, and it was one of those where I was so glad that we were kind of back to back with our episodes, Eli, because we would kept passing each other kind of on set when you were prep, and like then when you were in post and we were in production. That was really nice to kind of have that, like, you know, hey, I get it, I get what you're going through, I see the bags of your eyes, I know how tired you are. But then I was like, oh man, because I didn't get to be on set as much with you. But I mean, I'd forgotten actually how many scenes I was in, because watching this episode,
You were in a lot.
there's not, I got a good amount of time with you, which I was happy about.
No, and me too. No, Jocko did a great job. Our first AD, like kind of schedule. He front loaded and back loaded you, so you kind of had the middle to prep.
Yeah.
So your episode.
Yeah. And then the other thing I loved about this episode was that there's a lot of really great Coulson emotional stuff, and Daisy, that we hadn't seen Daisy for a bit, really. Like, we haven't seen much from her in a couple episodes back. Sharla, how, like, are there certain characters that you feel more like, if I was a writer and I had to write like a pivotal episode for Coulson, by the way,
Excellent.
Do you get more nervous to write, or do you love writing you know, how is that to approach?
Yeah, I feel like all the writers, I think, maybe gravitate towards certain types of stories, and certain types of stories are better for certain characters.
Right.
I think you can, like, I wouldn't say that our writing staff, like, this person writes this person the best, this person writes this person, but like different types of stories people are like better at or more connected to. So it kind of depends on what that character is going through.
Right.
Don't necessarily.
Coulson's emotional in this episode. Like, he's dealing, you know, we've seen him in the episodes before, kind of obviously taking things in, but he vocalizes a lot in this episode about how hard it has been and how he's kind of having this existential crisis.
Yeah, I really like the scene where he's like talking about being thirsty for like a year and a half when he was in this crazy TV contraption in the last episode. he didn't have a body for like a year and a half. Like, how does that mess with your brain? And just like kind of him figuring out that yes, he's still alive, but he's died so many times at this point in our story. Like, what does that mean? Does that mean that he's like still a person in some way? Like, it was him trying to figure that out. I think was really fun.
And then Eli, having watched the show for so long and been gunning for it and just, you know, manifested this episode, how like, what was that moment like when you first met Clark? Oh, I guess you'd met him in shadowing, right?
Well, I met him, but it's different.
Yeah.
He's so approachable and he's so humble. Clark's also a director.
Right.
So, which is a big difference, because while he's number one on the call sheet, he's also a director.
Yeah.
So he knows what you need and when you need it and the time that you need it in. And so if you kind of have your plan together, he's there with you.
Yeah.
And so it was great. Like, it was really great. And he, I'm lucky that I got to work with him, and wish it could have been even more, but
he's so awesome.
but he was fantastic.
This show means so much to him, and like you say, he's number one. Like, from the very start, he you know, really made it a huge part of his life to look after us and to guide us, and he's been a massive mentor to me.
It's an interesting thing, because I actually so on the first episode that I shouted on way back in season 2, there was a moment where there was a stunt happening and it didn't feel right to whomever was doing it, and I guess Clark could sense it, and Clark stopped everything and was like, wait, hold on, like let's take our time and let's talk through it. And only he could do that as being as number 1 on the call sheet, but he took the time, and we had the time, and he was respectful of the director and everyone else, but he was like, okay, we need to talk through this for safety. And he had everyone's back. And every project that I've done since, I've told that story to whoever is number 1 on the call sheet, because there is a responsibility that comes with it. And nobody embodies that more than I've ever met than Clark Gregg. He really feel like he is there. He has everybody's back. And it's really cool. Like it's really, really cool.
Yeah, he does. And he knows, like you say, he's a director, so he knows his stuff. And I think with you coming in and just being so prepared, but also so willing to, you know, hear people's ideas, but at the end of the day, as the director, you're the one that has to make the decision, and you know there has to be one decision for us to be able to move forward. And I think like that, it's, how do I say this, like he there's some directors that he helps to guide maybe more than others, and I think the fact that you guys had you just have a special relationship, and I think that like your guys, like you could have taken that as maybe being a bit more intimidating, because I mean, when you come in and direct Clark Gregg, you're like, well, I better flipping know what I'm talking about, because it's Clark Gregg and he's been doing this character forever. And I just felt like you did so brilliantly, and I think
thank you.
Clark thinks so too. But yeah, he has so many stories I have of him, of just really such a caregiver, and like when no one's watching, he'll say things that boost you, or you know, like you say, he'll shoulder the responsibility of stopping set, because as soon as you stop set, the money it costs to have everybody there, that's just ticking, and you know, you have to, there's the confidence that comes with saying, you know, safety first, which is obviously paramount.
And it was safe, but he also knew that it was important that people knew that it was safe, and that was what was so great. Like, and that was what was so great. Yeah,
having the leadership, I guess, isn't it? Writers, so we have a question. Oh, we're in the commercial again.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll let you know when we come back on. But I just wanted to quickly ask from Loris Feeney for James, do the writers have favorite scenes they've written?
I mean, of course. But we always get to the point where it's weird for the two of us, because we write as a team, where what we always do is we sort of break it together or with the room, and then we sort of like do first passes on scenes in the outline, then the script, and then we pass them back and forth so many times that now it's over a year since we wrote this. Like, we can't remember who wrote which ones.
Yeah.
Except for like occasional lines sometimes or things like that. But
well, the scene that's on right now is between Nathaniel, and he's trying to convince, Cora to, you know, maybe go in a different direction.
Yeah, this was a fun one because he's our bad guy, and we've established him as our bad guy, and here he is doing this like good thing, where from her perspective, he's like this angel who's come in and you know, is saving her life. And so it was very interesting to see, like, oh, like, yes, he has quake powers now, but really his power is this like charisma he has.
Yeah.
And that's what he's using right now.
Yeah. How was it, Eli, because we haven't, you know, we've met Nathaniel a few times, but he's still a relatively new character, and then Cora's brand new.
Yeah.
Is there, I don't know, is there a different way you approach it if you're establishing a character?
A little bit. Like there were definitely conversations with Mo and with Jed about and Jeff Bell and also, and of course James and Sharla, with how they envisioned her to develop and who she was and how she was going to develop. And that was so much fun to get to create that with her. I mean, that's when you get to really like dig in and kind of do it. And she, again, was just so game. I mean, she was just wonderful. And really just went there, like, and went for it, like with everything, like whether it was, emotionally, physically, like she was willing, she's fearless. And so it was really cool. Like, it was really cool to get to create that character with everyone. Because in TV, it is so much, it's a team, it's very much a team effort, because there are, it's the writers of the episode, it's the showrunners of the show, it's like I said, it's everyone's baby. And so everyone has a vested interest in who this person is going to become. And so it's cool. It's fun.
We've just got to the bit, which is the most, maybe Fitz has been in it for a while. Simmons is doing her little message. I was watching this and I couldn't remember how we shot it. Did we shoot it that I was actually on? So I'm looking at this little iPad thing. Was that actually recording me at the time of shooting? Did you just hide the camera behind my shoulder? Can you remember? I can't remember if that was green screen on that iPad.
I think we did have something for you to look at. That was, I think we did like it from that angle, but they also shot it.
But did we shoot it from the iPad, or was there a separate camera there?
I want to say we put a camera there on the take.
I feel like we put a camera there. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like it's real. I couldn't remember. And then my other thing I couldn't remember was the jumps. Obviously, there's so many jumps in this episode. Did we do a thing where we shook, or did we decide we were? I remember there being so many discussions about like, how do we remember?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. James, you want to take this one?
Yeah, when you're a writer, you're sitting there and everyone else is doing all the camera stuff. They're just throwing jargon around and you're sitting there like, I'm sorry I wrote this, guys.
Yeah, exactly.
You were doing it multiple times with like changing the frame rate and so reshooting the scene to do it, and all these different things that we always said, let's just blame Chris Cheramy because he said that's what we need for the jumps. So
And we did. And if Chris is watching, we absolutely blamed you.
Yeah. So how did you do it in the end? I can't remember. Was it a camera shake? Or
we did a couple different versions.
Right.
We did a couple of different versions because there was a version where we didn't know if we were going to do it in camera, if it was going to be VFX, so much like whether it's budget that comes into play. Like there were so many elements. So we kind of just wanted to cover our bases with it and make sure that we had whatever was going to fit into the whole season, and how it was going to look in terms of the whole season. So.
This like the effect that they put on in post, the color and everything, it looks brilliant. It really,
they're geniuses. Like Mark Kolpak and the whole
the effect of it. Like we were shooting this like as season 6 was airing, so it's like we knew that they were gonna like be doing the VFX for the whole season, so if we had to have the options of like nothing was established on air yet. I think literally actually I remember that we were in our tone meeting for this episode the night that 602 aired, because that was the one we had done with Kevin the previous season.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, they decide to change things from episode 1 through 13 in VFX after we're done with the season. So let's make sure we get everything.
Right. So then you had to shoot it all the different ways. Yeah. I mean.
Yeah. And you don't want to be, as you know, Elizabeth, like you don't want to, especially on your first outing in network television, you don't want to be the director that didn't get it the way that they need it.
Yeah.
And so even if they're not sure, so you're like, okay, I'm going to do it all.
Yeah.
And
it's just hard
and just be honest but thank God the cast is so giving. It's like, okay, so we're not sure, so we're just going to do it all the different ways. And everyone's like, okay, cool, we get it. Like, we get it. It's like, my first rodeo wasn't yours.
Yeah. No, it was that, wasn't it? It was like, do we do, like, so let's do one, it's the big shake, and then we do, then They're the moments on set that you just go, if people knew how ridiculous we look, all obviously while trying to look very cool and superhero-like. Okay, now just do shift left or, oh my gosh, this is all coming back to me now. And then as the director, you have to cope with all your actors just completely falling to bits and not be able to do it. Because when you're keeping eye contact with someone and then you both just shake, it's impossible to keep a straight face.
Yeah. But, you know, but I can't either. I mean, as you know, like, I mean, especially like Chloe, who's, you know, badass in every moment. You know, like, I mean, she's, you know, has to be badass in every moment. It's like, and doing all those different versions of things. It's great. Like,
it's turned out so brilliantly. And like, Charlotte and James did not make this episode easy on you, because we just left the Zephyr where the whole team, apart from Yo-Yo and May, and like staring at the screen, and it's all very tense. And any scene that there's more than, I'd say, 4 of us in is a nightmare, because we all get together and we all get super chatty and super silly. And, you know, for you to be able to wrangle us is...
You kept saying that, but it never happened. Like, you guys were, I think you were just, I don't know, you guys were just very kind to me.
Maybe we're well trained now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe it took 7 seasons and like we behaved.
Those were like the only days I actually got ahead. Were the big ones where like I planned to have to do so, and everyone was just, it was just fun. It was good.
It was so fun, and just having your passion there is just, you know, makes the day go faster. I mean, for us as an actor, we love it when there's more actors there, because, you know, just more fun. But
and we get to do more. I mean, everyone gets to play more. They riff off each other. I mean, and also you guys are so great together. So it's like, why not? You know?
Talking about riffing, there's been a couple of questions. I'll see if I can find who it was so I can give them a shout out. About how much is script and how much is improvised. Maybe Shara and Jamie, you could take that one.
I mean, we try to script everything, but occasionally something will come out. Like there's a line at the end where the very end where it's Deke and Enoch are having a scene, and like we had written, like, spoiler alert, Deke asked Enoch if he can play the drums, and while we were posting it, Joel just like ad-libs back, I can keep tempo.
Was that an ad-lib? That's so funny.
We were like, that is amazing. So that was one where we shot it both ways with him saying that and not, because we're like, we love that. We think Jed and Mo and Jeff will like that. So let's have it both ways, so when we're in post, they can put it in there or not. And fortunately, in post, they kept it, which is, that was just 100% Joel just being perfect.
Oh my gosh, that's so fun. Yeah, because mostly
Joel ad-libs punctuation so beautifully. Like Joel, like, it's not the words, but like punctuation, he'll do it 4 different, and it's glorious. Like,
the thing he does being a Chronicom is so hard to do, because other actors have come in and like tried to do it, and then like, wait, so what? He just effortlessly, like, however you write a line, he like knows exactly the intonation that was like in your brain.
It's so funny, like, once we heard his voice and the way he said things, you can just imagine any Enoch line. Like, it's such a strong voice that you're like, oh, clearly when I write it this way, that's how he'll say it. And like, it just became such a strong voice. And that's always great as writers, to just know, like, have a strong idea of how your lines are going to be said.
Yeah. So that question was from Hannah Kopek. Thanks for your question, Hannah. And there's been another question. When you say, Sharla, about he had such a distinctive voice that made it easier to write. I've got another question that I'll try and find who asked it, about if it was difficult to keep the characters' voices consistent when it's a different writers each episode. Do you guys just kind of, how does that work?
I mean, that's like really like one of your primary jobs as a writer on the staff of a television show, is to learn your bosses and your showrunner's voice and learn to write to that, because it's like, someday James and I hope to have our own show, and we'll get to like,
yes, you will.
Voice is, but right now it's our job to kind of like do our best to write to our boss's voice, and kind of, that's the consistent thing that continues through the whole show.
And working in a room is so great for that too, because we're all in the room breaking story on every episode together. So like everyone, and we have these in-depth pitches where we fill up 4 whiteboards around the room and we go scene by scene, moment by moment, basically acting the whole thing out. Like people have done pratfalls and
you guys commit.
Yeah. I mean, Brent's pitch for 707 was, that episode came straight out of his brain. So because of that, we all sort of have a sense of all of the story, even for characters that we haven't written before, what other people did. Plus, as writers and producers in the show, you watch all the cuts and stuff as soon as they come out. And if there's a character that you haven't done yet, like you'll make a point of reading over the scenes that were in the previous episodes and that sort of thing. So for us, like Jiang was someone that I wasn't even on staff when she was there.
Right.
So we made a point of like rewatching all the season 2 episodes again, just to make sure that like, okay, this is who she is. All right, this is her cadence. This is how she would say things.
Oh, that's so cool. So that question was from, I want to say you pronounce it Alicia G.
Excellent, thank you.
That's a very good answer. So we've just got, what are we, only 8 minutes till the end of the episode now. And I'm trying not to do this with spoilers, but it's very difficult. Yo-Yo and May are kind of back, but Yo-Yo feels like maybe it's not been that successful. It's so fun to see these two kind of sparring in the scenes, like literally, and oh my gosh, who's that?
So, my 2 little ones are wanting to say hi.
Hi guys.
Hello.
How are you?
James and Sharla and Elizabeth.
Hello.
Hi. Sawyer and Jemima.
Hello.
Sorry.
Can they watch it? Are you guys going to be able to see it?
Most of it.
Of course. I was
Most of it.
more
They're
like
5 and 7, so.
Got it. Yeah.
But they're excited.
Oh, we just got. Oh, I don't want to spoil
So yeah,
it.
what are we?
So we just figured out we're not jumping anymore.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
there you go.
That's good.
How was it to film that the yo-yo effect, Eli? Because that's it. It just looks like it would be really hard to shoot.
It was. I feel like with that, and James and Charlotte, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we really in prep. We really bedded down exactly what it was going to be, just because time wasn't on our side, and so we knew exactly what we were going to be able to do VFX wise. There were things that we wanted to do, and thankfully most of which, Mark Kolpak, who's a genius, anyone who is watching for the first time is a genius, makes every VFX happen. Did it, and kind of consulting with him, and so we knew exactly what it was. That was the closest we came to boarding something out.
Right.
Because we needed to. When you say am I
remember
that correctly?
One of the tricky parts of it was that we had to figure out with like the actual lighting of the time drive thing.
Yeah.
Right.
How much of that was going to be done practically and how much was going to be VFX? Because
there's lights on the prop, which like Scott, who builds all our props, like had tons of different light settings on this prop. Go through and be like, so it's going to do this, and then it's going to do this, and then how much is practical, and then how much is Kolpak going to put in?
Yeah, well, because that's part of what the producing side of the job is. You sit in prep meetings and they say, okay, you want to have the thing blinking this time? If we figure out a way to do it with actual lights, it would do this and cost this much time and this much money. If you just want to leave it blank and off and have it all VFX, painted in after the fact, it'll cost this much. So you have to juggle those things so you know how many shots of different things you have.
Well, and it's like once you make the decision to do it practically, you can't change it. So as a director, you got to get it right on the day. Those sets no longer exist. They can't go back in a couple weeks and try and do it again. We just we just got to the Enoch's ad lib line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, your earlier spoiler. And then now we've just got the tag left. I can't believe how much is in this episode. When you say, Eli, about like having to get the yo-yo effect completely like almost storyboarded because there's just not enough time. Like I watching this, I have no idea how you guys shot this in what, like 9 days, 10 days, 9 days.
Yeah,
I think we were just 8, or do we have a 9th up that day?
no, I think we had a double up.
There was a Gary Brown directed unit directing some of the fight stuff, like the May and Yo-Yo sparring, and Melissa getting quaked against a wall, which was Gary Brown, second unit director. That is his daughter, who we had pulling needles out of Yo-Yo's forehead and quaking into a wall.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time we've quaked her into something with Eli on set, because in 517 in the Ruby fight, she was doubling Ruby.
I have still photos of it.
Quaked her into a tree. So we just ratchet her into things all the time.
She's incredible. Melissa Brown is just the most amazing stunt woman, and happens to be Gary Brown, the great Gary Brown's daughter. But did you was it what you expected?
Oh, sorry, I lost you there for a sec.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, I dropped out. I think my Wi-Fi went.
Oh,
was
sorry.
it sorry, I was just saying, like, is it what you expected, Eli, after shadowing for so many years and doing the program and like not getting paid for the time that you were on set? You know, you have a family, like.
Honestly, it was better. Like, honestly, it was better. Like, it was, and the only hard part is that it was one episode. And it was like, because I had grown, I had so much affection and so much love for the show and for the people, and that it was the last season was the only, but it was the experience itself. Very, very rarely is the reality better than the dream. And in this case, it was from the script to the crew to the cast. It was an absolute dream come true. And it was wonderful.
If we had more seasons, I feel like we would have wanted you for every single episode after that. You would have been booked up.
I would have shared them with you because I'm so excited for next week. I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you.
Excited.
And then
I really,
James,
really am.
thank you so much, Eli. James, what do you have? I mean, this might be a bit of an impossible question to answer, but do you have a piece of advice for people that want to get into writing that maybe don't exactly know where to start?
I mean, the cliche is just start writing, but part of it is read. Also, like, read as many scripts as you can.
Right.
And when you watch things, like, I mean, I remember when I was in college, I used to watch like commentary tracks on things all the time. That's part of why this is fun to do. You glean little bits of stuff where, like, oh, they did that way because they have to use the same set. Okay. And you see watch things and think about why people did them the way they did, because everything in a TV show or movie is someone had to make a deliberate choice to spend the money to set it in that exact moment in time. So just read a lot of scripts, watch a lot of things, but most importantly, just write your own stories first and structure them and outline and all that stuff. But do it enough times so that way when you've done it 3 or 4 times, you'll have something that you actually feel good about. So if you're lucky enough that someone says, yeah, sure, send me your script, I'll give you notes. You have something that you're proud of, then they can read and say, oh, yeah, you're good.
Right.
Yeah, we'll give you a freelance episode. Why not?
Yeah. Have it there ready to go. Oh, amazing. We're now seeing the preview for next week's, and I meant to say
Yours.
Mine and ours are so connected, Eli, which is another, like, I was just so happy that you were doing 8, because the way that you kind of finished your episode is a lot to do with the next episode, and you just did it so beautifully. And while it was playing, I can't remember who was saying something too good for me to interrupt, but the way you kind of laced in the ending of your episode was so beautiful, and I was extremely grateful to have that as a jumping off point. Thank you guys for being so generous. I was so excited for this one to just really dive in a bit more about how you guys got to where you are, because you're all just such incredible people, and I think you really show that there's a path that people can, you know, if you want it enough and you're willing to put in the the hours and the years sometimes that then you can get to do your dream job.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
True.
you did that, Elizabeth. You were always the one who was always on set early and learning what everyone's job was on the crew and stuff. So when it came time for you to do your episode, all everyone could say was like the crew all wanted to show up for you because you were so wonderful. And I'll say like all of us in the writer's room, because we had very little story left to break after this episode was over, we watched your director's cut and we were like, wow, that's a great director's cut. We were so very impressed with it.
Pretty excited to see the finished product next week.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited too. I mean, I'm so proud of it. I think by the time it gets on air, there's just so many, you all know, there's so many incredible brains that have been involved in creating it. It really does feel like, such a team effort. But I was just thank you guys so much for coming on, because I think I've been lucky enough to get to know you guys and ask you a bazillion questions about everything, but it's nice for other people to do it, because everyone's got a dream. It doesn't have to be to do with the entertainment industry, but I think with anything, if you just work hard enough and you're freaking cool people like you guys, you can make it happen. And how the Olivers have done it with beautiful Mirabelle is just like that's you guys are real life superheroes.
Yeah.
Well, we're pretty much on lockdown right now with her, so pretty easy right now.
It's going to be one of her role models. So.
Yeah.
Oh. Well, I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for sending in the questions. Sorry that we didn't get to many of them, but it was so lovely to read them all. And congratulations, you guys, on an amazing episode 708.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.